It's early morning in Sydney's west, and this household is up early. Siham Abbass is waiting for a lift to Canberra. She has an important meeting with the Australian government. In a horrendous scenario, Siham believes her husband is being held illegally by corrupt officials in an Egyptian jail.
Ahmed! Give me this pepper.
Along with his two sisters, 12-year-old Ahmed is missing school to go to Canberra today, hoping it will help return the father he hasn't seen since he was 3 years old.
To the Prime Minister John Howard, I am Mohamed Abbass and I have an age of 9 years old. I have a problem. My dad is in Egypt and for 6 years. I have not seen him. On the 5th of...
This has been a long nightmare for the Abbass family. A father and husband has vanished, and all attempts to help him have failed. When Dateline first met Siham and her children 2 years ago, they'd already been battling for years.
On the 5th of September is Father's Day and I would like to see my dad. Please help me solve my dad's problem.
أنا القلب ويعني ومشاكل صحية ومشاكل نفسية ومشاكل مادية ومشاكل في كل حاجة بس يعني أنا تو ماتش 8 سنين هنا بكل حاجة لوحدي.
But today the family leaves for Parliament House with renewed hope. A mysterious man has emerged who claims to have contact with those holding Mohamed Abbass in Egypt. But as Siham tells her companions, this go-between says her husband is being held unofficially and only a hefty bribe will get him out.
كان اداني رقم حسابه عشان احط له الفلوس فيه ويعني الموضوع بس قال لي حاجه وانا مقتنعه بيها قال لي جوزك متاخد غير رسمي ازاي هتطلعيه رسمي
صح.
Importantly though, this go-between has told the Egyptian community that after 8.5 years, Mohamed Abbass is still alive.
Yeah, he confirmed many times that he is alive and he is well. Sometimes he gets sick, they move him to the hospital and then bring him back to where he is. Only one thing he said, that his eyesight is getting down, he cannot see properly as he used to do before.
To test this, Australian authorities gave the go-between 5 so-called proof-of-life questions, personal questions that presumably only Mohamed Abbass would know the answer to. The go-between brought back 2 correct answers.
I think they suggest he is in Egypt. I think they suggest he was definitely alive at the time. And I think there's certainly the last piece of solid evidence we have that he was alive, and while we still believe he's alive, we have to continue to look for him.
Mohamed Abbass, an Australian citizen since 1971, disappeared shortly after this home video was taken in 1999. He went to his native Egypt for a month's holiday, but never returned. Recently retired after 20 years working for Telstra, by all accounts, he was an innocent man.
Absolutely, he have no interest in politics. Absolutely, he have no interest to be in any group. Absolutely, he have no contact with any politics or group or Islamic group or even normal societies. He just practice his life like any normal person. Work, house, kids, and couple of friends, you know, just go out picnic, go out watching football game.
We've spoken with all of the Australian intelligence agencies, and they speak very highly of Mr Abbass. So this is not a wealthy man, a very strong family man, no dark secrets, no engagement with terrorism, no basis for any such motive that we can find.
Mohamed Abbass was last seen by the relatives who dropped him off at Cairo airport at the end of his trip. Egyptian authorities later said he'd flown to Turkey, and Turkish immigration records apparently show him arriving. But Siham Abbass was convinced he'd never left Egypt, and in late 2000 she went to look for him there. After making a fuss at a number of government offices, she says she was approached by men outside.
فخدوا نمرة تليفوني قالوا لي بعد 3 أيام هنتصل بيك نقول لك في الموضوع ممكن يعني تشوفيه ولا لا. وفعلا بعد 3 أيام اتصلوا بيا وقالوا لي ان انت متراقبة إذا بلغتي فده مش كويس علشانك لقيت تحبي تشوفيه هنعمل لك زيارة وتنزلي طبعا من غير ما تقولي لحد.
After paying a bribe, Siham was blindfolded and taken to what appeared to be a prison, where she says she spent 30 minutes with her husband.
وقال بقول له يعني ايه المشكله وكده قال انا مش عارف بس يعني ارجوكي خلي الحكومه الاستراليه يعني تساعدني انا يعني مستعمل الباسبور الاسترالي وانا استرالي ومش عارف انا هنا ليه.
His captors then demanded $250,000 for his release. Scared for her safety, Siham told them she'd have to return to Australia to find the money, knowing all along she didn't have it. Instead, she approached the Australian government, which told Dateline 2 years ago there was no way to back up Siham's account.
What we're missing here is some concrete evidence to challenge the very clear and repeated assertion by the Egyptian authorities that Mr Abbass is not in Egypt.
Which way I go? Which way I go?
But today, Siham believes the government now has the concrete evidence it needs in the form of the mysterious go-between, a man Australian authorities have been dealing with. This is the Australian-Egyptian businessman who's claimed to have contact with Mohamed Abbass's captors. He lives in Sydney, but spends considerable time in his native Egypt. Dateline knows the name of this go-between, but out of concerns for his safety in Egypt, we've decided to protect his identity. Siham says he's been contacting her ever since she saw her husband in captivity, telling her that she needs to pay the ransom. 2 years ago, Siham put him in touch with Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs.
وهم هنا عندي في البيت كلموه في التليفون وقالوا ان الطلبات اللي انت عايزها بما فيهم ان انت تدخل لسفير استراليا في مصر دايركت يعني تاخد النمرة دايركت تدخل يعني أول ما هتنزل مصر على طول هتلاقي إن هو في استقبالك.
In Egypt, the go-between began liaising with the Australian embassy. They made it clear, though, they would not be paying a ransom. Early last year, Siham was informed of a breakthrough via a letter from the Department of Foreign Affairs.
On the 27th of March, contacted our embassy in Egypt and advised that a prison guard at the Al-Mazrah prison camp in Cairo had given him answers to 2 proof of identity questions. This is an encouraging development, providing an indication that your husband may be alive and in Egypt.
The Australian government now had information it could take to the Egyptian authorities, but it decided to wait for the go-between to work through his unofficial channels.
We think it may be worthwhile allowing that process to unfold, given advice from and Sheikh Hilali that approaches to the Egyptian government would be counterproductive.
What's really astounding about this letter is that it shows Australian authorities were finally willing to accept the possibility that Mohamed Abbass was being held unofficially in an Egyptian prison.
I don't believe in the government or diplomatic way they have solution for this case.
The controversial Mufti of Australia, Sheikh Tajuddin El-Hilali, still believes unofficial channels are the best hope for Abbass. Hilali, who's from Egypt, has tried to help, though he personally has no contacts.
نحن بدنا secret business. Mr Abbass not under control the Egyptian government. With مع جهات خفية، مع جهات لا تتعامل معنا فوق الأرض.
It sounds like an incredible proposition that rogue elements could hold an innocent man outside of the official prison system. But Egyptian human rights groups have documented many such cases.
One aspect with the Egyptian system is that the Egyptian government themselves doesn't have direct control of quite a number of the prisons in the country. They're controlled by the SSI, who are known to carry out coercive disappearance.
The SSI?
SSI.
What does that stand for?
State Security Intelligence.
Martin Hodgson is from the Foreign Prisoners Support Service, which investigates the plight of Australians jailed overseas. He thinks it's plausible that Abbass could have been held secretly for this long.
There's been plenty of cases documented of people going beyond the 10-year mark and being released after this time. Again, I have at least the name of 50 people who have gone more than 5 years and no contact with anyone and who were then released.
Former Guantanamo Bay inmate Mamdouh Habib has spent time in Egypt's unofficial prison system, sent there by the United States as part of its Rendition program. As Dateline first reported in 2005, Mamdouh Habib says he saw Mohamed Abbass in prison. Interrogators paraded Abbass before him.
You know this guy, he's Mohamed Abbass. He disappeared 2 years ago.
Habib says that those running the prison were in the business of making money.
Running their own business. That's exactly what happened.
They're running a business there?
Their own business.
Their own business?
That's what they do.
Based on the go-between's assurance that release could be imminent, in 2006 the Australian Embassy in Cairo even issued a new passport for Mohamed Abbass. But after months of waiting for the go-between to deliver on his promises, it decided to make an official approach. A strategy was devised, whereby Australia's ambassador in Cairo would tell the Egyptian foreign minister that his country might be detaining an Australian in a case of mistaken identity.
We are hopeful that by offering the Egyptian government a face-saving solution, they might be more likely to confirm that Mr Abbass is in detention. However, I should stress that there is no guarantee the Egyptian government will provide a positive response, and there is a small risk that Mr Abbass might be relocated to prevent his discovery.
But the Egyptian authorities continue to deny holding Mr Abbass.
Have Egyptian authorities made attempts to see if there are indeed corrupt elements within the system who are holding Mr Abbass?
This issue, I think, is totally unbelievable. For anyone who knows Egypt, this sort of situation could happen really in a failed state. Egypt is a strong state. There is strong control over the different elements of the state.
Siham Abbass believes the only reason that the go-between's dealings with the Australian Embassy came to nothing was because the ransom wasn't paid. In a terrible predicament, she says the only way she could get the money was by selling her house, but she couldn't because it's held in her missing husband's name.
هو لما قال لي بقى إن السفارة مش موافقة على دفع الفلوس، قلت له طيب أنت عارف إن أنا ملياش إمضة مع جوزي علشان يعني أبيع لك البيت، أبيع البيت وأديك ثمنه. طيب إيه رأيك ما تخليه يعمل لي توكيل وأنا أبيع البيت وأديكوا الفلوس؟ قال لي لا، أنتوا شوفي اتصرفي استلفي اعملي وبعدين يبقى هو يدفعوا. لا ما ينفعش إن.
A final chance appeared 2 months ago when the go-between, who was in Egypt, called community members here.
So he rang up here, a friend of ours, and he told him that he got a chance to get him out if we pay $100,000.
This time a rallying cry went out, and dozens from Australia's Egyptian, Lebanese and Anglo communities pledged money. Kamal Kalani called the go-between in Egypt.
I told him that we collecting the money, we're ready to do it, but please tell us how we send the money to Egypt. He said, all right, give me time, I'll go back to the people and call you back.
A few days later, the go-between called from, of all places, Germany.
He rang me up and he said, I'm in Frankfurt. What's going on? He said, I left Egypt, I'm in Frankfurt now, and I feel that I'm in dangerous position. I cannot do any more, and you have to forget about this deal.
With the go-between saying the deal was finished, Mohamed Abbass was placing her hopes on the meeting at Parliament House. Afterwards, her own lawyer cautions against undue optimism.
But if they are not able to find him within a prison, then there's not a lot the Australian government can do. It makes it really difficult for them and for us because we get no information.
But Foreign Affairs officials promised Siham they would meet with the go-between. When Dateline spoke with the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Foreign Affairs last week, he revealed the surprise outcome of the department's conversation with the go-between.
And in that interview he denied having encountered Mr Abbass. He denied any information as to where Mr Abbass might actually be, and he denied having made requests for money from Mrs Abbass. So when we actually fronted him, it's unfortunate, but the information which he had allegedly offered to provide to others evaporated.
Will attempts be made to make reveal his sources in Egypt?
Well, he denied to us that there were any sources.
But he's already told Australian authorities in Egypt that he does have sources, so how can he deny it now?
I can't speak for him. We in fact have also referred it to the Federal Police to see if they might have any success with him.
Dateline has been trying to speak to this mysterious go-between for weeks. Oh, hi, could I speak to please? We finally spoke to him this morning, and while he refuses to discuss his involvement in this affair, he did express concerns for his safety in Egypt. He also disputed the government's account of his supposed retraction, saying he told them, quote, "Please get me out of this." He also told Dateline that Siham needs to pursue this legally in Egypt because, quote, "Anybody like us cannot help anymore." Mohamed Abbass, however, still wants his help. She believes he's the best link to her husband's captors.
أقول له بليز يعني ساعدنا، يعني ساعد أولادي وساعدنا، لأن أنت اللي عارف الموضوع كله، فبليز ساعد ولادي، لأن ولادي أبسط، ولادي زعلانين وما فيش حاجة بتفرحهم إلا رجوع أبوهم، فبليز ساعدني إن ولادي ترجع لهم البسمة تاني.
Supporters of the Abbass family now hope that Australian authorities can do something with the information this man gave in the past.
That's what we hope, because he said he gave them all the information, even unofficial name for him and whereabout he is.
Well, we have followed every avenue, and we've followed the official, we've followed the unofficial, we've worked through governments, we've worked through security agencies, we've worked through prisoner groups, we've worked through the Egyptian community, and everything that the individual in question has said has amounted to nothing.
Given that the approach, the face-saving solution to the Egyptian government, that strategy didn't work, do you think it's perhaps time to play a little hardball with the Egyptian authorities?
Well, I spoke with the Egyptian ambassador and we called him in only last week. And what you're assuming, your whole assumption to this is that there is a secret plot to hold this man.
After seeming so close to her husband's release, Siham is now back to where she started, trying to convince sceptical officials that Mohammed is being held in Egypt. It is an extraordinary sounding plot, and hard information is difficult to find. But if Mohamed Abbass is indeed held in a shadowy, unofficial prison, that's little wonder. For the family left behind, it's nothing short of a tragedy.
And what impact does it have on the family?
I guess it makes us like kind of, I guess, less of a family because we have one member missing.
احنا لسه انا وولادي وكل الفاميلي بتاعه عزمتنا زي ما اول ما حصل. عزمتنا من احنا في 2007 عزمتنا زي ما يكون في 99. فانا جوزي موجود